perhaps, those target allocation percentage transfers that you're doing twice a month, right? These are not just rudimentary cash transfers, right? These are your opportunity to look back at your business and really reflect, what's going on, right? Where's the opportunities here? What can I change? What can I optimize right now in my business, right? Whether it's a cash shortfall, it's an opportunity. If it's a cash shortfall, it's your opportunity to find out, where are my shortcomings? What are my opportunities for improvement? What can I course correct, right? And it's an opportunity to find the opportunities really from looking at your tap transfers. In terms of today, in terms of our topic of what we're going to be talking about is, you guys have been doing tap transfers hopefully for a while, right? You guys have been implementing Profit First. You've been with me a few months now, and you've been implementing Profit First. And part of Profit First is that everybody should be doing target allocation percentage transfers, right? Because at the end of the day, our goal is to get to our target allocation percentages. And so you want to make sure that you are doing those transfers. And they're not an every now and then thing, right? It's not a do it, I forgot to do it, or I'm going to do it when I feel like doing it. It's something that we should be doing regularly. Every one of our businesses should be doing Profit First target allocation percentage transfers regularly. And we should be doing them at least twice a month, right? So they should be happening on the 10th and 25th of the month. Some of you guys are actually doing them weekly. Some of you guys may be doing it a different day for different reasons, such as when you run payroll. But target allocation percentage transfers, when you are doing Profit First, it is not an optional thing. Everybody should be doing that, because the reality is, when you don't tell your money where to go, right? When you don't make those transfers and you don't tell your money to go in those different bank accounts that have different purposes, right? What happens is life is going to make decisions for you, right? Life is going to make decisions for you. Those opportunities are going to show up out of the blue, like, hey, we're having a special right now, and it's only live for this day. If you don't sign up, you're going to miss it. Those shiny objects show up, right? Those shiny objects, you got to get this thing right now, today, show up, right? Those convincing salespeople show up like, hey, they're everybody's friend next door. And also bad days happen, right? You walk into your office and just nothing works that day, right? Nothing works that day. And suddenly you have to replace a whole lot of things. And suddenly, why not upgrade things as we're replacing things, right? And what happens is when you don't tell your money where to go, right? When you're not intentionally moving money to different bank accounts that have designated purposes, right? When your money doesn't have a designated purpose, right? You're not going to get the results that you want, right? And that's why we have to move money intentionally. That's why we have to move it in set percentages, and we have to be intentional about our money, because we can create that profitability, right? We've learned that we can create profitability by moving money to particular bank accounts, right? Really day one. And so everybody here, everyone that is participating in Profit First, everyone that's doing Profit First needs to be conducting tap transfers, right? This is not an optional thing. This is not an every now and then thing. This is a lifetime commitment, right? For as long as you're running your business, you need to be doing your target allocation percentage transfers, and we need to be doing it consistently, right? And we need to be transferring to our profit account, right? Because our profit account is important, right? Because profit is intentional, right? That even if you're starting at 1%, that 1% builds, right? That 1% absolutely builds. Start with 1% if that's where you're at today. We also need to be funding your owner's pay account. I can tell you many years before Profit First, I kept my salary at the same amount for many, many years, right? And it was because I had fixed it in my payroll. I had programmed it in my payroll that was going to be my salary. And that was it. And it never changed, right? But in Profit First, it's a percentage of your real revenue, right? And that percentage is going to create a situation where your owner's pay is going to increase. When you're doing well, when you are knocking out of the park, when your revenue is growing, right? You're going to be also benefiting as a business owner. And so it's important that you're also transferring to your owner's pay account, right? And you want to be intentionally transferring that salary because a lot of your colleagues that may be running businesses that are not employing profit first, they're either making the same amount they made last year or they're not paying themselves at all. But the reality is you are the MVP. You are the most valued player. And so you need to be paying yourself. And so you must be transferring to your owner's pay account. That is not optional. You must be getting a fair shake. And then you also have to transfer to your tax account, right? And this is important because I don't want any one of us here today worried about how am I going to pay for last year's taxes with this year's money, right? We're not going to have that problem because we're going to fund our tax account first. And then whatever's left over, right? Then we're going to put that money into our OPEX account, right? That OPEX account is our very last account. And what's happening is when we're transferring to our OPEX account, right? We're creating that illusion of scarcity, right? We're talking about this is the only money that I have left that I can use to pay for operating expenses, right? We're creating that illusion of scarcity. We're creating a smaller bucket. I call it my plates, right? If I go to a smorgasbord, right? If I go to a buffet, I have never left proud of a buffet. Susanne does not go into those anymore because she knows she cannot resist the temptation, right? But if I do an order of dinner and the plates are like 5 inches, right, I'm going to eat a lot differently just because of my plate size, just because of my options. And so we're creating that illusion of scarcity using that OPEX account. So we talked about everyone should be doing transfers. We should be doing them regularly, at least twice a month, right? The 10th and 25th. Some of you guys are doing them weekly if you need to. And we're creating that illusion of scarcity within our OPEX account. And then something special happens, right? Something special happens if you are regularly doing your target allocation percentage transfers, right? Something special starts to happen. And what starts to happen is you start to notice trends, right? You start to notice trends in the numbers as you're doing transfers. You start to notice like, oh, wow, I did pretty good this day, right? I did pretty good this week, or I did pretty good the last 2 weeks. My collections were actually higher, right? And what that means is, this when it's higher, that means that you're benefiting as an owner, right? You're getting more profit, you're getting more owner's pay, you're getting more tax that you're able to put away, right? And you're starting to notice these trends that, oh, wow, I'm actually doing pretty good to compare it to what I did a year ago or what I even did last month. But you also notice things like, what happens if you're not performing well? You start to notice that, okay, this transfer, we didn't quite make the collections that we thought we were going to make, right? And this isn't good. What do we need to do to course correct that, right? And, many of our clients, that are on Profit First, we actually have something called an OPEX payroll account where we create a sub account of our OPEX account that's strictly for payroll. And, one of the benefits of the OPEX payroll account is you're separating those funds, right? You're funding your payroll first. So you're not worried about how am I going to make payroll? Nobody wants to have employees looking at them like, oh my goodness, are we going to get paid today or not? Right. And so you're taking care of that worry by funding that payroll account. But not only that, you're able to see is what is my payroll as a percentage of my revenue? Okay. What is my payroll allocation as a percentage of my revenue? And this is very important because now you're like, okay, am I getting a 4X on my labor? Am I really getting a 4X on my labor right now? Is my payroll too high? Is it like 75% of my collections, right? For some of you guys, you're seeing that, right? But you're starting to see, things like, how is my payroll costs when you're splitting it out as part of our OPEX, how is that as a percentage of my overall collections? Do I've got too many people on my team? What's happening here that might be causing that? You might be able to say over time, though, if your payroll percentage that you're putting away, your payroll amount that you're putting away every transfer, right? If your payroll is increasing, right, meaning your cost of labor is increasing, that's the reason why our payroll would be going up, but our collections are really kind of staying the same, right? Now you have that ability to act accordingly, right? Because you're looking at these tabs, you're seeing these changes, you're seeing that, okay, my payroll's like 50K and I'm collecting 75. There's something wrong here, right? And you're going, okay, what needs to happen here? Are all my people really chargeable? Are they all really active and busy at this point? Then obviously now it's time for me to raise my prices, right? I need to raise my prices because, if it's not a chargeability issue and my people are completely billable, right, then I need to raise my prices in order to justify this cost. Now, if you find that your root cause of your payroll percentage being so high is actually a productivity issue, meaning that you've got labor and people aren't working, right? You're paying for wages and people are not seeing clients or they're not actually doing the work they're supposed to do, right? Meaning that your team is actually not as productive as they need to be, right? So now you're asking yourself difficult questions, right? Do I have team members that are just not functioning at their fullest capacity? Right? Might be a question that you might ask. Do I have too many staff members? Right? Or has my business changed? Has my business changed? And by doing these taps and monitoring labor as a percentage of revenue, you're going to be able to identify this. So take that step back as you're doing your tap transfers. Just go ahead and just take that calculator, right? And take, okay, this is the amount that I'm needing for my payroll, this pay period. Divide that by your total collections and go, okay, how much of my collections is actually going towards payroll? And you want to take a look at this and you want to monitor this and you want to see. You also want to look at your OPEX transfer, that amount that's being transferred to OPEX. And you want to ask yourself, is this really enough to cover my overhead? Meaning like if I've got rent coming up, if I've got mortgage coming up, if I've got utilities that are coming up or loan payments that are coming up, is this OPEX adequate to cover that amount, the amount that I'm transferring? Something that I like to do is something called a 30-day cash flow projection. And, one of the things that I personally like to do is a 30-day cash projection, especially for larger businesses that are, seven figures or above that may have other people that are involved with doing accounts payable. When you create a 30-day cash projection, you can start to see, okay, and this taps that I'm running right now, this money has to last me all the way through the 12th of the month, right? And if it's got to last me through the 12th of the month, I got to see what bills are going to be coming due during that time period. And will my OPEX produce enough cash to cover those bills, right? It's something that I want to look at. And sometimes when you're looking at OPEX and you're like, okay, this transfer was not enough, our collections were not enough. Sometimes that leads you to scrambling, right? You're going to have to scramble and make those sales, call those leads that are in the pipeline that we haven't been in touch with for a while that we need to call and see if they are able to make a decision right now, right? Or sometimes we have to make those necessary budget adjustments quicker than what we anticipated, right? And so it's important to look at those tab transfers and go, what is this telling me compared to my needs, right? And then some of you guys, you may have mats and subs, right? You may have direct costs. And when I say materials and subs, what that means is those are those costs that a business might have to incur or they have to incur in order to make a sale. So what I like to think about in this case is I'm thinking about a retail company, right? So I'm thinking about like a store, and a store needs to buy inventory in order to create a sale, right? And so those inventory things that they're buying. So if I'm selling clothing, right, I might have to buy clothing like shirts and pants in my inventory in order to resell that, right? And so if you're in a business that has direct costs where you've got to purchase materials or you've got to hire subcontractors because you're in a maybe construction type of business, right? You're going to need to have this mats and subs account. But there's some key things that you too can look at when you're looking at your target allocation percentage transfers, right? When you're looking at your mats and subs that you're transferring into your mats and subs account, there's some things that you want to also be evaluating. When I look at the mats and subs amount that's being transferred in my tap transfers, I'm also looking at my financial statements and I'm going, okay, if I'm transferring 33% of my collections to my mats and subs, and I just happen to look it over at my financial statements, what's my cost of goods sold? What is my cost of goods sold showing here? Is that also 33% or is that actually more? Is it higher? Is it 50%? What is my cost of goods sold? And compared to my mats and subs allocation on my tap transfer. Because remember, Profit First is different than accounting, right? Profit First is a cash management system and accounting is more of an after effect accounting thing. And this analysis is important, and it's important to compare the two because it's important to go, okay, if my mats and subs is less than my financial statement cost of goods sold, meaning my cost of goods sold on my financial statements is higher, how am I paying for that, right? Is my credit card balance starting to go up? Am I borrowing from my line of credit in order to make inventory? Do I actually have inventory on hand that I'm not using, right? Have I bought things that are not selling over? Do I need to slow down my purchasing of inventory to get more in line with just in time purchases, right? And you guys that are using credit cards, you have to be careful, right? Because credit cards in Profit First, we're working with something called an illusion of scarcity, right? We're creating an illusion of scarcity through bank accounts. And if you got a credit card that says you got a $40,000 limit, you just got $40,000 in cash, right? And what does that do to the psyche? Suddenly it feels like we can just buy more things. So you got to be careful with credit cards. I've seen a lot of people get in trouble with those credit cards because it does violate that illusion of scarcity in some ways. And so you do want to compare those tap percentages to your financial statements just to make sure they're in line. Because if they're not in line, you're somehow paying for it somehow, right? And you're paying for that either through credit cards or through debt, or you're taking less profit. You're borrowing from your profit account, which, none of us should be doing that, right? And so we want to be careful with that. And so you definitely want to look at your financial statements and say, okay, how's my cost of goods sold percentage comparing to my mats and subs allocation? And again, you want to get into the analytics. So if you're seeing that your actual cost of goods sold is higher as a percent of your mats and subs, what's going on here? Do you have inflation that's happening, right? Because I think we're seeing inflation in every single industry that's happening, right? And so if inflation is happening, do we need to increase our prices in order to match that? Are we borrowing to float that cost like we talked about? Is our credit card balance going up because we're making more purchases than we should be? And are you staying in budget, right? Or are you staying in budget? Are you staying in within your percentages of mats and subs? And are we being disciplined? Because if we're keeping inventory on hand, right, we're now increasing our business risk, right, that we might not sell these things. And so ask yourself, what is causing this, right? What is causing this? And of course, how do I correct this, right, as it's happening? And then when you're doing your tap transfers, ask yourself, how are your collections doing overall? Like, how, and I like to keep my tap transfers on the same spreadsheet so I can see how did I do from this period to this period. And I've got a spreadsheet that's like, oh my gosh, like 10 years long, from like probably more like 7 years long from doing all my tap transfers, right? And with the beauty of having a spreadsheet that has all that data is now I can look at it month to month, transfer to transfer, and I can go, how am I doing month to month or even year to year? Like what has been happening with that? How are your transfers from one to another, right? Are they consistent? Are they going up? Are they pretty, consistent? And if they're not, then you're going to ask yourself questions such as, is this a seasonal business? Is this a seasonal business where I need to put money aside to weather the slow season? Like maybe I'm busier in the winter time versus the summer. Maybe I'm busier in the summertime. Maybe I need to start putting away money for reserve, right? Because I've got higher transfers or higher amounts that I'm putting away. And I'm not really, of course I'm going to spend the OPEX if it's there, but maybe I need to create an OPEX vault where I'm putting that money for another season in a savings account far away where I can draw it out in my slower months to cover my overhead costs, right? And so looking at, okay, if I've got seasons of higher collections, maybe this is an opportunity for me to put that money into an OPEX vault in order to have that money available for when I need it during my slower seasons, when things are not as robust in terms of collections. And, if I had a larger collection, right? And maybe it was not a seasonal issue. Maybe it's just something that happened, right? What caused this increase in my collections? What caused this? Did I score big in a new marketing technique, right? Did I do a new advertising source? Did I have my salespeople call more people, right? What happened here to get this a bigger collection than what's normal? And this is important because I need to repeat this, right? I need to find out what this was because I need to repeat this behavior in order to continue to get these results. Now, if my collections are slowing down, right? If they're slowing down, if they're getting smaller, right? Especially over time, if they're getting smaller, right? I need to ask myself, what is causing this to happen, right? What is causing this to happen? Is there something that happened in the market that changed, maybe something macroeconomically that happened in the environment that's impacting my business, right? Because technology changes, right? Competitors come there. What may have changed macroeconomically that may be affecting me, right? Did the needs change in the current environment? Did the needs change in the market? Is my product or my service still in need? Is it my sales team? Because sometimes it's the sales team. Maybe the sales team is just not performing, right? Maybe they are not meeting their metrics. Maybe we need to make this more visible, so that we can motivate people. And maybe we've got some people that are not performing on the sales team. But you want to ask yourself, what's causing this decrease? What's making this happen? What's causing this decrease? And you're going to see that all in your target allocation percentage transfers. And then you're going to ask, how is my tax account doing, right? How is my tax account doing? Do I have enough money that's accumulating in my tax account that's actually going to cover my taxes, right? So when you're getting with your accountant and you're doing your estimated taxes, am I putting away enough in my tax account to be able to cover my taxes during those estimated tax calculations conversations? And remember, in Profit First, there's something unique about Profit First. In Profit First, your company is supposed to be able to pay your taxes, right? And especially once you reach your target allocation percentages. So if you're still building, right, it may not be enough, but once you're at that good 15%, your company in most places should be able to pay those taxes for you. And your question is my taxes being covered, right? And so you want to ask, how is that tax account going? Am I building from it? Is it enough to cover the taxes? And if you're in a state, because there are some states that have high taxes, right? If you're in that state of California, right, and you are high net worth, meaning that you are in that 37% federal tax bracket, you might be close to 10% on the California side, right? And if that's the case, right, you might need to actually increase your tax percentage. 15% may not be enough for you. You may have to go to 17 and 18%. And so you may need to increase that tax amount that's being held from your account in order to be able to cover that, right? And also, if you're finding that you have an excess, if you're looking at your tax account at the end of the year after you run your taxes, if you're finding that you have an excess in your tax account, right, because of your tab transfers, perhaps there's an opportunity to put money away in a 401k, right? So if you guys are like privately held, if you're a solo entrepreneur, if you've got and even if you're not, you still have IRA accounts options if you qualify for that with your income. Maybe there's an opportunity to put money away, get a deduction, right, while putting money away and still saving, right, with that money that you have an access in your tax account. But overall, TAPS, those target allocation percentage transfers that you're doing twice a month, right? These are not just rudimentary cash transfers, right? These are your opportunity to look back at your business and really reflect, what's going on, right? Where's the opportunities here? What can I change? What can I optimize right now in my business, right? Whether it's a cash shortfall, it's an opportunity. If it's a cash shortfall, it's your opportunity to find out, where are my shortcomings? What are my opportunities for improvement? What can I course correct, right? And it's an opportunity to find the opportunities really from looking at your tap transfer. So I hope that this lesson today was extremely helpful for you guys. Do not let your tap transfer just be a movement of money. Take that opportunity to really deep dive, look at what these numbers mean, what they're telling you. And again, even if these are not financial statements, they still tell you a whole lot, right? They still tell you a whole lot of what's going on in your business, where the opportunities are for you. Where do you need to course correct? Just moving money, right? It keeps your pulse really on the business. So don't let it just be a habit of just doing it and just making a mathematical thing. Make it a business operational analysis for you as you're doing those tab transfers. So I hope that today was extremely helpful for you guys. I love spending time with you guys. And until next time, may the profits be with you.